American comic mutant. Lao Wan said I was too extreme. Chapter 31. The matter against Charlotte. It is too serious. It can almost be said that it concerns the fate of the entire human race. Therefore, every aspect must be handled with extreme caution. When General Trask's plan was unanimously approved by the top leaders, a huge and meticulous plan began. And the prerequisite for this plan is lowering Charlotte's vigilance. In simple terms, kneeling. 3 days later, X Academy. A senior senator from the political world came here and was received by Professor X. Senator Slack, you haven't been here for a long time. Welcome, my old friend. Senator Slack, a rare dovish senator towards mutants. Usually he is also responsible for contacting Professor X and easing the relationship between mutants and ordinary humans. Based on this, he and Professor X have become very good friends. At the same time, he is also part of Professor X's network. Professor Charles, you are still so graceful. But I am not here to reminisce today, but to tell you a good news. I am looking forward to it. Slack said without hesitation. At present, the House has basically reached a consensus to improve the relationship with the mutant community. If nothing unexpected happens, the new mutant bill will be issued soon. For this reason, I have also received a special task, which is to invite you to participate in the formulation of this bill. Professor, I believe you should understand what this means. Let Professor X participate in the formulation of the mutant bill. It is basically equivalent to negotiating with mutants. Even Professor X was very excited about such news. Because this is exactly what he has dreamed of. Since he realized the difficult situation of mutants. He has been committed to improving the status of mutants so that mutants can live in harmony with ordinary humans. Now, there is finally light at the end of the tunnel. For Professor X, it was equivalent to the result of his efforts in this life. But soon, Professor X was puzzled again. Why is it so fast? In the past, Professor X had made efforts to promote the implementation of the mutant bill. However, every time, the results were minimal. But now, the big pie is directly smashed on his head. Isn't this ecstasy? But besides ecstasy, there are more doubts. I can't figure out the reason. Of course, this is mainly because Professor X's moral standards are too high. If he had a lower bottom line, he would directly use his psychic power to scan the heads of the congressmen. He would know the cause and effect of the matter. Even those plans can be known clearly. Unfortunately, Professor X is the kind of person with a very high bottom line. Under normal circumstances, he would never scan the human mind. Maybe this is the so-called human rights. Looking at the puzzled Charles. Congressman Slack just said 2 words lightly, Charlotte. Hearing this, Professor Charles immediately understood. Honestly. After hearing Charlotte's name, Charles's mood was very complicated. On the one hand, he was happy and excited about the implementation of the Mutant Act. On the other hand, he was lost and confused. He had worked hard for the Mutant Act for most of his life. But it cannot be said that there was no result, it can only be said that there was indeed no result. Even in Charles's view, the Mutant Act may not have a chance to be implemented. As a result, who would have thought? He had worked hard for half his life but could not do it. Charlotte did it easily. The means used were the violent means that he could not accept the most. Such a fact was somewhat depressing. He had licked the human high level for most of his life, but was not treated as a human being. As a result, Charlotte caught the human high level and slapped them in the face. Instead, the human high level was scared. Even, this new, Mutant Act, was not proposed by Charlotte. It was the initiative of the human leaders. What is this? The goddess that I pursued so hard turned around and licked someone else. This description is not quite accurate. But the meaning is almost the same. However, Professor Charles's complicated mood was soon calmed down. He was too conscious after all. Although he and Charlotte are not the same kind of people. However, he is willing to accept such a result. I can see that the future of the mutant race is getting better and better. He becomes a clown, so let him become a clown. Sly Congressman Slack came this time. In addition to informing Charles to participate in the revision of the Mutant Act, there is another important task. That is, admit defeat. He said to Charles, Professor, I wonder if you have any friendship with that person. Hearing this, Charles was stunned for a moment, but soon came to his senses and realized who he was referring to. After realizing that the person was Charlotte, Charles's expression froze for a moment. But before he could speak, Congressman Slack continued, regarding that person, our government's top leaders have realized their mistakes. The military leaders involved have all been liquidated. But we all hope to have a chance to ease the situation, and there is no need to become enemies. It's just that the person has a very hot temper. I'm afraid our people have turned into a pool of blood before they even see him. If it's convenient for you, could you please pass on a message to express our government's attitude? Hearing this, Charles fell into emo again. Good guy, really good guy. Other mutants, after doing something big, were either wanted by the American government or locked up as guinea pigs. Even Magneto, who was as strong as he was forced to flee America. But what about Charlotte? He almost destroyed Los Angeles with a nuclear bomb. Instead of being hunted down by the top officials of America, he took the initiative to admit his mistakes. So they are bullying honest people. However, although his mood was very complicated, but he adhered to the original intention of the mutant community. Professor Charles finally nodded with difficulty. Forget it, the current priority is to improve the relationship between mutants and humans. Mainly to ensure this. Then, Professor Charles is willing to do anything. Isn't it just to make Charlotte give in? It doesn't matter to him. Okay, I'll help you with this. But I can't guarantee the result. I can only guarantee that I will try my best to mediate. Hearing Professor Charles's words, Senator Slack nodded with satisfaction. Patted Professor Charles on the shoulder. Senator Slack said, I feel relieved with your words. By the way, I have other official business next, so I'll leave first. When I have time, I'll invite you to my house for dinner. Looking at Senator Slack leaving, Professor Charles fell into silence. Was he really too easy to talk to in the past? I'm back. Charlotte was sitting on a chair reading a book. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he asked subconsciously. But soon, he realized something was wrong. It was indeed Mystique who came back. But in addition to Mystique, there were a few more people. Wolverine, Cyclops and Phoenix from the X-Men. And, Professor X Charles. Charlotte frowned and looked at the guys who came to the door. What's the matter? When I watched movies before, Charlotte still liked this group of people. Because superpowers and so on are really cool. But now, for this group of X-Men, Charlotte's evaluation is that they are not good enough. The good guys are not particularly good, and the bad guys are not completely bad. Stuck in the middle, neither up nor down, it can only be said that they are not good enough. Charlotte had no intention of dealing with these people. Not to mention, he had beaten them up before. As a result, this group of people came to the door directly. So he was too gentle, right? Professor Charles obviously noticed that Charlotte did not welcome them to come. However, considering Charlotte's many contributions to mutants, Professor Charles still took the initiative to say, Mr. Charlotte, I sincerely invite you. May I have the honor to talk to you? Facing Charlotte, Professor Charles could no longer have the parental mentality he had when they first communicated. When Charlotte and Professor Charles communicated for the first time, Professor Charles tried to use his decades of failure experience to teach Charlotte how to walk. But now, Charlotte has proved it with his actual actions. He can do better than Charles. In this case, Professor Charles can only be humble. Looking at Charles who was begging seriously, Charlotte thought about it and finally decided to give him a chance. Let's talk together. I hope we can have a pleasant conversation this time. On the nearby street, Charlotte pushed Professor X's wheelchair forward with vector operation. The other members of the X-Men followed closely behind. The look they gave Charlotte was also full of complexity. In fact, it was not just Professor X who had a great change in his attitude towards Charlotte. The members of the X-Men were even more so. After fighting with Charlotte before, they thought of Charlotte as a madman. But now, this madman has done something that none of them could do. This led to many people in the X-Men began to reflect. Did they really take the wrong path before? So many people, so many years of hard work. Charlotte easily surpassed them. I have to say, this is ironic. And in front, after a moment of silence, Professor X finally spoke. Sometimes, I really feel like a failure. I have tried so hard for so long, but I have not been able to bring humans and mutants closer together. But I didn't expect that you could easily do what I couldn't do with just one threat. At this point, Professor X has basically figured it out. Charlotte's previous nuclear annihilation of Los Angeles was essentially a threat. His purpose was to prove that he had the ability to destroy Los Angeles, rather than really destroying Los Angeles. That is why Professor X admires Charlotte. He is not only capable, but also smart. But at the same time, after this incident, he became more confused about himself. If he had known earlier that the human leaders were so weak, perhaps he could have implemented the mutant act long ago. Why didn't I think of this method in the past? In fact, with Charles's strength, if he wanted to, he could have done a more serious threat than Charlotte. If Charlotte could easily destroy a city, then Professor X can kill all ordinary people at the spiritual level with full firepower. Even, he doesn't need to kill them all, as long as he shows that he has the idea to do so. Then, the high-ranking officials of mankind will immediately kneel down and serve him as dogs. But Professor X has never done so. This is the problem. Facing Professor X's self-mockery. After thinking for a while, Charlotte replied, "You are a good person, Professor. Because you are a good person, you can't do the same as me. Similarly, because you are a good person, those high-ranking officials of mankind will not take you seriously." Although it sounds cruel. But this is the fact. Good people are easy to be pointed at. On the contrary, people like Charlotte have no bottom line, but dare not let others act rashly. Yes, I am a good person. I am very happy that you think of me this way. But it is too difficult for a good person to protect what he cares about. Charles was bored. He was really hit hard. This is equivalent to denying the belief he has insisted on for half his life. Looking at Charles with a sigh, Charlotte shook her head and said nothing. To be honest, Charles does not deserve sympathy. But his character is worthy of admiration. After another silence, Charles came back to his senses from sighing. He smiled embarrassedly at Charlotte. Then, he talked about another thing. Recently, the official high-level officials of America found me. I hope I can help them to make peace, and I hope to maintain a good relationship with you from now on. But I think this is not normal, Professor Charles said to Charlotte. And Charlotte, after thinking carefully for a moment, he also came to the same decision as Professor Charles. Yes, this is not normal. According to Charlotte's inference, the human leaders should be afraid of him and wary of him at this time, but not completely desperate. In other words, there should be at least one counterattack. Unless those leaders really accept their fate and recognize that there is a living God above them. Otherwise, those leaders will definitely organize at least one annihilation of Charlotte in the end. To make peace so quickly can only mean one thing. There is a problem. Charles also thinks so. He understands humans and knows that humans will never give up so easily. Originally, he didn't want to explain these things. However, when he really met Charlotte, Charles finally changed his mind. Reminded Charlotte. In the final analysis, it was because of Charlotte that the status of mutants really changed. Because of Charlotte, the status of mutants was improved. It is also because of Charlotte that the Mutant Act has a chance to be implemented. Once Charlotte dies, it is not certain whether humans will become more evil than before. But if they go back to the past, that is no longer a situation Charles can accept. He can admit his failure and his incompetence. But he cannot watch Charlotte's achievements being destroyed. Facing Charles's kind reminder, Charlotte nodded and said nothing. In fact, he had expected this. He had already prepared for another big fuss. Now Charles's reminder was just icing on the cake for him. But he still accepted this favor. If you have any problems in the future, you can find me. If it is within my ability, I can help you once. Charlotte made a promise to Charles. But the premise is that it is within the ability. If it is beyond the ability, then forget it. Charles understood, then trouble you. Charles had no doubt about Charlotte's strength. An absolutely extraordinary existence. Among the LV4 mutants, Charlotte is absolutely invincible. His ability is too comprehensive. Under the vector, no matter what physical ability you have, they are all gone. Even Charles's mind control has no effect on Charlotte. Brain waves are also a type of electric waves. Charles's ability is not so comprehensive. He may need Charlotte's help in the future. He can get a promise from Charlotte in advance. It can be regarded as keeping a trump card for the future. After talking about the government, the two did not speak again. After walking quietly for a while, finally stopped at a crossroads. Okay, let's stop here. When the situation stabilizes, I will go to X Academy if I have the chance. Hearing this, Professor X smiled and nodded. Okay, then I look forward to your arrival. Charles was very satisfied with this meeting with Charlotte. Not only did he eliminate the previous misunderstanding with Charlotte and bring the two sides closer. More importantly, he realized that Charlotte was not a lunatic. Charlotte's madness was more of a superficial appearance shown to others. Because only lunatics can make people afraid. But in fact, Charlotte is very normal. He is rational and has a goal. And he is always moving towards this goal. This makes Charles not worry that Charlotte will lose control one day in the future. If only he could be born earlier. Looking at Charlotte's back as he turned and left, Charles thought with some regret in his heart. The more he knows Charlotte, the more Charles feels that Charlotte is simply the savior of mutants. Even in Charles's eyes, Charlotte is the perfect leader of mutants. He has strength, courage, and means. He is not like him, who is too indecisive and can't make up his mind to show his strength. He is not like Magneto, who is blinded by hatred and has too extreme means. Charlotte is like a combination of him and Magneto. He perfectly neutralizes the shortcomings of both sides. Of course, this is just Charles's own idea. If he tells it to others, no one will believe it. After all, it's all about what Charlotte has done. You call it not extreme. Since Magneto debuted, he has killed more people than Charlotte. This is extreme, okay. After parting with Charles, Charlotte returned to his own place. And continued his daily life, reading books and studying. Mastering his own vector operation as much as possible. As for the official conspiracy against him, Charlotte was not too worried. At most, he was more vigilant. This is not because Charlotte is arrogant, but because he has absolute confidence in his own strength. Super mobility is Charlotte's greatest confidence. Although Charlotte does not know the details of the official conspiracy, he can roughly guess it. It is nothing more than setting a trap for himself and letting himself step into it. But how is this possible? Charlotte doesn't care about anyone, so what trap will he fall into? If he notices something wrong, he doesn't care about traps and baits. Just run it directly. It is precisely because of this that Charlotte can be so calm. He just needs to make sure that he has no flaws. Then, he will not be calculated. But even so, I still have to pretend. Just think of it as adding some fun to this game. By the way, let Polaris be busy, so that she doesn't have to shout about doing big things every day. Charlotte thought to herself. Not long after, Polaris excitedly appeared in front of Charlotte. After she received Charlotte's message, she rushed over immediately. Just because Charlotte said that she wanted to do big things sites over. She really likes to do big things. Lord Charlotte, what do you want me to do this time? Is it to find the surrounding nuclear weapons bases, or to organize mutants to raid the White Palace? As long as Lord Charlotte gives an order, I am willing to do anything. Polaris had a fanatical expression. It made Charlotte's eyes twitch a few times. She was really a little extreme. How could a good child become a crazy guy? Oh, you learned it from me, that's okay. Retracting her thoughts, Charlotte also said her own instructions. There is a secret underground base in New Jersey, which was once used to study mutants. To this day, that underground base is still in operation, and many people who have hurt our compatriots are still active there. Take your mutants and destroy that underground base. As for those humans, you can do it. After hearing this task, Polaris' eyes lit up. This mission is very suitable for her personality. When she was in Los Angeles before, she wanted to show her skills. Unfortunately, she encountered an insider and the operation was cancelled. This made her depressed for a long time. Now, it is finally her turn to take the stage. Don't worry, Lord Charlotte, I will definitely destroy this underground base. Just wait for my good news. Polaris patted her barren chest and promised. Charlotte glanced at her subtly. You'd better not make any trouble. If you are not careful, you will be trapped in it. Don't blame Charlotte for not saving you. Go, Mystique will cooperate with you to find the underground base. Charlotte waved her hand and said, Mystique's ability is too convenient to use for spying. She is simply a perfect spy. Almost all the information about the underground base was spied out by Mystique. However, Mystique is somewhat powerless when it comes to truly top-secret information. Her ability is not a secret, and many high-level officials in America know about it. As long as you are on guard, you can never get the truly top-secret information. For example, the Sentinel Project. The Sentinel Project is the real trump card of mankind. It is also General Trask's real painstaking research. Perhaps now, the Sentinel Project has not achieved much. But in the future, the Sentinel Project will almost wipe out all mutants. If Mystique can really spy on this top-secret plan, then the Sentinel robot will not be able to come out at all. Of course, now there is an additional variable like Charlotte. Whether the Sentinel robot can come out is another question. Let Polaris go out to cause trouble. It was a smoke bomb thrown by Charlotte. The purpose was to reassure General Trask. Let General Trask know that he was still causing trouble. No attention was paid to other things. If Charlotte really did nothing during this period, then the first person to be worried was General Trask himself. He would never think that Charlotte had turned over a new leaf. He would only think that Charlotte was holding back something big. It would be bad if General Trask was scared to give up the conspiracy. Charlotte still needed General Trask to set up a stage for him to harvest fear value again. General Trask could not be allowed to give up the task. Facts proved that Charlotte's approach was correct. Almost at the same time when Polaris and his mutants set off for the underground base in New Jersey, General Trask received this message. After seeing that Charlotte finally couldn't keep quiet and started to cause trouble, General Trask breathed a sigh of relief. General, do we need to inform New Jersey of this news? General Trask's confidant asked him. But General Trask shook his head. No, let him make a fuss. But if this happens, my colleagues in New Jersey, it's just a few deaths, so what if they die? Our most critical task is to deal with Charlotte, the culprit. As long as this goal can be achieved, other sacrifices are necessary. General Trask knew very well what would happen if he didn't pass on the information. The New Jersey underground base was caught off guard. It would almost be annihilated. The number of casualties would also reach a terrible level. But so what? Compared with the overall situation of killing Charlotte. It's just a military base, so let it be destroyed. As for the soldiers in the New Jersey military base, just think of them as sacrificing their lives for the country. Looking at General Trask's cold and ruthless face, the trusted lieutenant couldn't help but shudder. He was really afraid of his immediate superior. If it weren't for the occasional emotion he could see in General Trask's eyes. He even suspected that this was an emotionless robot. He was too cold and too cruel. Not only was he ruthless to mutants, but he was also the same to his own people. However, it was precisely because of General Trask's character that he had the opportunity to lead mankind to completely eliminate mutants. Thinking of this, the trusted lieutenant's expression became fanatical again. It should be here. Before the operation officially starts, I'll tell you something unpleasant. We are not here to play around this time, but to kill people. Next, in this underground base, unless they are our compatriots. Otherwise, you can't let anyone go, understand? New Jersey, outside an underground base hidden in the mountains. Before the operation officially starts, Polaris said to the more than 20 mutants he brought with him. And after hearing Polaris' words, many mutants showed hesitation in their eyes. Not every mutant kills without blinking an eye. Mutants still have the word, human, on them. Looking at the hesitation in these people's eyes, Polaris cursed secretly, saying that the mud can't be helped. But he still said, you should know that this underground base is used to persecute us mutants. Everyone in this base has the blood of our mutants on their hands. You are soft-hearted towards them now, but if you fall into their hands one day, they will not be soft-hearted towards you. Have you forgotten those compatriots who were lying on the operating table and being disemboweled? Hearing this, the eyes of the mutants around him gradually became firm. The previous hesitations were quickly replaced by murderous intent. What Polaris said was absolutely right. They sympathized with these humans today. But these humans had never sympathized with mutants in the past. They knew too well the fate of mutants who fell into such an underground base. Disembowelment is good. Some may even be brainwashed into hounds, which is the most cruel. It is even possible that among those hounds, there are many relatives and friends of the mutants present. As a mutant, who has survived to this day, who has not experienced being hunted down, having their relatives and friends killed, taken away, and then no news. This hatred is made of blood. It can only be ended with blood. After watching the mutants under his command, each of them made up their minds. Polaris showed a satisfied expression. Then he stopped hesitating. He led the mutants directly to the underground base. Before entering the warning range of the underground base, Polaris started the attack in advance. From the ground under his feet, an iron ball condensed. Then, electromagnetic acceleration made this iron ball directly turn into a super electromagnetic cannon, accompanied by whistling wind and dazzling flashes. At the entrance of the underground base in the distance, there was an immediate and violent explosion. The heavy iron door, more than 1 meter thick, was directly penetrated by a super electromagnetic cannon from Polaris. Its power is so strong. It is comparable to some ground-penetrating missiles. Witnessing the destruction he had caused, Polaris nodded contentedly. It was worth her time to read so many books with Charlotte. Her strength is indeed more than 10 times stronger than before. As Magneto's daughter, Polaris also accepted Magneto's magnetic ability. In terms of talent, she is undoubtedly qualified. It's just that the development of her own power is too rough. But with Charlotte, it's different. Under Charlotte's guidance and her own continuous learning, she has developed her own abilities to a very high level. Even though the total amount is not comparable to Magneto. However, in terms of application, she is not much worse than Magneto. This also greatly improves Polaris's strength. Now, even if she is not a LV4 mutant, she is not far from the LV4 level. This strength is used to deal with an underground base that is defenseless, so there is no problem. As the gate of the underground base was breached, mutants led by Polaris also rushed in. Next, there was a massacre. All humans in this underground base, without exception, they were exterminated. Not a single person was left alive. Charlotte's style was fully demonstrated. Destruction. The subordinates of the destroyer. Of course, he is also the messenger of destruction. It took more than 2 hours. Polaris led his mutants. They killed the entire underground base from beginning to end. After ensuring that there was no one left alive, she was satisfied and stopped. Let's go, take the remaining people away from here. This time in the underground base, Polaris not only killed a lot, he also rescued many of his fellow mutants who were imprisoned. Polaris didn't know how to arrange these fellow mutants for the time being. But there was no problem taking them away first. And the words of Magnet and Polaris sounded like an imperial decree to other mutants. There was no voice of opposition. All mutants chose to be honest. Too cruel. Polaris was really too cruel. When he started, even the mutants felt extreme. It should be said that he was worthy of following Charlotte. It was full of Charlotte's style of destruction. Ignoring other mutants' opinions of him, Polaris walked alone at the back with his good mood. After confirming that all mutants had left, Polaris stopped and turned around to take a look at the underground base. Then, the powerful magnetic force was activated. The entire underground base was directly turned into a steel coffin. The countless steel inside the base was twisted at this moment and turned into various sharp weapons. Like a dragon turning over, these metals indiscriminately smashed the entire underground base into a pile of ruins. This time, there was really no trace left. Even if you are good at pretending to be dead, you will definitely not survive this kind of harvest. Everything was cut into pieces. He nodded with satisfaction at the effect he had caused. Then, Polaris left completely. And not long after Polaris left, soon, a pair of military personnel arrived here. Check the specific losses. When they saw it, the entire underground base had completely turned into a steel meat grinder. The people inside were all minced into minced meat. Even these soldiers who were used to seeing life and death. At this time, they all had a chilling feeling. Polaris's methods were really too extreme. General, we just got the news. The underground base in New Jersey was completely destroyed. None of the 1,300 soldiers stationed in that base survived. Hearing this, even General Trask, who was as cold as a machine, couldn't help but raise his eyes. Did Charlotte take action personally? General Trask couldn't help but ask. However, his deputy shook his head. It's a mutant under Charlotte's command, named Polaris. According to the information, she is also the daughter of Magneto, and has inherited the same talent as Magneto. It was her who destroyed our base. Polaris. There is a guy like Charlotte. General Trask's eyes were almost bloodshot. He really hated Charlotte. The harm that Charlotte brought to human society. It's not just him. And his existence will arouse the resistance of almost all mutants. Even, it will make other mutants become extreme and bloodthirsty. The higher Charlotte's status among mutants. Then, when other mutants face humans, the more dangerous it will be. This is why Charlotte must die. If he doesn't die, the hidden dangers are really too great. Charlotte is like a totem. The more successful he is, the more extreme other mutants will be. The only way is to kill Charlotte completely. Only then can we eliminate the influence of Charlotte on mutants. Only then can mutants return to the past. The situation where humans can slaughter them at will. Otherwise, conflicts and contradictions will be irreconcilable. What Polaris did. It soon spread all over the world. Her name was also remembered by many people. The military leaders also raised Polaris's threat level overnight. Even at this time, Polaris had been identified by the military as a target that must be eliminated. As long as Charlotte died, Polaris would be the next one. No one wanted to see another Charlotte. On the mutant side, Polaris also became a top star. Her name spread throughout the mutant circle overnight. Many low-level mutants even began to tattoo Polaris's image on their bodies to show their support for Polaris' faith. To put it bluntly, Polaris at this moment. There is a feeling that he will become the leader of mutants in the next moment. In addition to these, there is another person who knows the name of Polaris. That is Magneto. Polaris, it's little Lorna. It seems that she has grown up. Magneto still has an impression of his daughter. After all, that is his only daughter who inherited his ability. It's a pity that Magneto was persecuted by the authorities when he was in America. He had to flee America with his men. This led to separation from Polaris. After that, there was no news of Polaris. This made Polaris grow up alone. This also led to Magneto feeling guilty about Polaris in his heart for so many years. Now, after hearing Polaris, not only did nothing unexpected happen. Instead, she grew up better and better. Magneto was very pleased. In addition, there was another idea in Magneto's mind. That is, to go to America. To meet Charlotte and Polaris in person. If it were normal, Magneto would definitely not do this. Because he was still the focus of the American government. Before Charlotte appeared, he was the #1 wanted criminal. As long as he set foot on the land of America, he would be chased and intercepted by the American government. In this case, even Magneto would be unable to move. But now, the times have changed. Charlotte's sudden appearance directly stole Magneto's limelight. As a result, the American government's defense against Magneto is not as strict as before. As long as Magneto is careful. Going to America for activities is still no problem. It just so happened that Magneto had long wanted to take the initiative to meet Charlotte. Not to mention that his own daughter was still with Charlotte. Killing two birds with one stone. So, Magneto was undoubtedly tempted. And Magneto has always been a man with superb action ability. After making up his mind. No more hesitation. Arrangements were made immediately. And the other mutant teams under Magneto also followed him to America. After destroying the underground base. Polaris immediately returned to Charlotte. Like a child expecting praise from the teacher. And this time, after Charlotte listened to Polaris's action report. He also gave his own praise. Well done, it seems that you have not been lazy during this period. In this case, I will give you another task. I plan to establish a new mutant organization called the Mutant Foundation. The main responsibility of the Foundation is to unite the power of fellow mutants and strive to establish a country belonging to us mutants. The establishment of this foundation is left to you, and I will let Mystique assist you. When it is established, I will teach you how to become a qualified leader. Establish the Mutant Foundation, and even later, establish the Mutant Paradise on Earth. This is the pie that Charlotte drew for Polaris. And this pie is just right for Polaris. Polaris, who was already very happy because of the praise. After hearing this pie that fell from the sky. She became even more excited. No problem, Lord Charlotte, I will definitely complete the task. No wonder Polaris was so excited. In fact, Charlotte's pie was too big. Once she did all these and realized this pie, then, she would become one of the greatest people in the mutant community. Even her name might be recorded in history books and become one of the stars. This was really in line with Polaris's ideal. Charlotte didn't need to urge her. She quickly ran to work spontaneously. Mystique, on the other hand, was more sophisticated. She didn't rush to leave, but said to Charlotte seriously, "Are you really going to establish a mutant country?" Looking at Mystique's eyes, Charlotte nodded seriously. "There is such a plan. But at present, it is not yet mature, but I think it will be ready in a while." Charlotte didn't have much enthusiasm for establishing a mutant country. After all, he doesn't have a strong sense of belonging to the mutant community. But then again, Charlotte doesn't have a strong sense of disgust towards the mutant community. Don't forget that he is still the leader of the mutants. Secondly, establishing a mutant country will not take up too much of Charlotte's time and energy. There are naturally people to do specific things. All Charlotte needs to do is to be a background board, a pillar, and a mobile nuclear weapon. The rest will naturally be handled by mutants like Mystique who can do practical things. Charlotte only needs to ensure that this mutant country will not be destroyed by external forces. In addition, the establishment of the mutant country has a lot of benefits for Charlotte. That is, it can make his notoriety spread more widely among the human group. Let Charlotte harvest more fear points. No trouble, low risk, high return. Why wouldn't Charlotte do this? Of course, Mystique didn't know these considerations. She only knew that Charlotte was serious about creating a mutant nation. And this was enough for Mystique. It seems that I didn't make a mistake. Next, I will do my best to help you. At this moment, Mystique was completely devoted to Charlotte. Even if Magneto arrived here in person, Mystique would follow Charlotte without hesitation. Magneto's ideas were extreme, but his vision was too low. After a lifetime of mixing, he only created a mutant brotherhood that was like a terrorist organization. And what about Charlotte? He was ready to establish a country. Compared with Charlotte, Magneto was really not worth mentioning. Mystique's defection was also a matter of course. Mutant nation. It was a big pie that Charlotte drew casually. However, it made many mutants excited. Even during this period, many mutants came here to join Charlotte. For no other reason than the mutant paradise on Earth that Charlotte mentioned. And this news also reached many people's ears. General Trask, after learning that Charlotte was going to establish a mutant kingdom, his originally cold face became completely ugly. I knew he was very ambitious. You are dreaming of trying to establish a mutant paradise on Earth. General Trask realized the danger of Charlotte from the beginning. But until now, he realized. He still underestimated Charlotte. Charlotte was more dangerous than he thought. And more terrifying. The paradise on Earth for mutants must never be established. Because once it is established, it is equivalent to forcing humans to recognize the legitimacy of mutants. Once this happens, then, persecuting mutants will become neither legal nor moral. How can General Trask, who is eager for the mutant community, accept this? Therefore, Charlotte must be stopped at all costs to establish the paradise on Earth for mutants. Otherwise, the consequences will be disastrous. And to achieve this, his plan must be advanced. Although it is still a bit hasty, it is enough. Thinking of this, the resentment in General Trask's eyes became stronger. Charlotte, you really deserve to die. Establish a paradise on Earth for mutants. This is really incredible. But then again, why not? Magneto heard the news that Charlotte was going to establish a mutant kingdom. At first, he was shocked. Can it be played like this? Mutants can actually establish a country. But soon, he got excited. Why not? Why not? Magneto has always wanted mutants to have the same status as humans. But he still couldn't figure out how to do it. Even though he has been trying hard to cause destruction everywhere, he still hasn't found a way to make humans and mutants equal. Until now, he saw it. The road called founding a country. Once the mutant kingdom is established, then, mutants and humans will have the same or even higher status. At that time, let's not talk about anything else. Mutants alone can get rid of the fate of being hunted at will in the past. This is a great event for the entire mutant community. It's a pity that this path was not proposed by him. But it doesn't matter. Magneto is not a narrow-minded person after all. He has great love. He loves the entire mutant community. As long as he can help, the mutant community will get better and better. He doesn't mind playing a supporting role. This time, he can't wait to see Charlotte. The news that Magneto entered America. It couldn't be concealed at all. Soon, General Trask learned about it. After knowing this, General Trask's first reaction was to speed up the action. Although Magneto was not as threatening as Charlotte. But he was definitely a thorn. An enemy that gave General Trask a headache. Facing this guy, General Trask currently had no better way. Kill him without paying a huge price. That's why. Magneto was so high profile outside, and General Trask didn't arrange for someone to assassinate him. It was already difficult to expel Magneto from America. If you provoke him again, what if he comes back? But I didn't expect it. General Trask did not provoke Magneto. But Charlotte did. Magneto came back just like that. Regardless of what the purpose of Magneto's return was. It was not what General Trask wanted to see. In order to avoid any more trouble, it was time to start his plan in advance. When Magneto rushed to New York. When he was about to meet Charlotte. On the other side, General Trask also acted quickly. X Academy. It should have been a peaceful and quiet day. Professor X, as always, drove his wheelchair to walk by the lake. He liked this kind of time to feel the breath of nature. But soon, Professor X met an unexpected person. Senator Slack. Why are you here? That's right, the person who suddenly appeared was Senator Slack. This old friend of Professor X. Facing Professor X's doubts, Senator Slack explained, I came for this child. He is a mutant. I found him in a mutant laboratory. He seems to have been stimulated in some way. I think you may be able to help. Hearing this, Professor X's expression became serious. Is that so? Let me see. Professor X stepped forward and put his hand in front of the mutant's forehead. With his spiritual power spreading, he wanted to find out what happened to this mutant. Soon, under Professor X's investigation, a terrible memory entered his mind. Being abused, violent, insulted, and fed with various drugs. A series of extremely horrifying memories made Professor X frown. Although he had expected it. However, such a miserable memory still made Professor X a little unbelievable. Just as Professor X was about to increase his efforts to explore the deeper memories in the mutant's mind. A whistling roar came from above his head. He looked up. 4 or 5 missiles, with long tail flames, flew towards the direction of the mutant school. Seeing this scene, Professor X immediately became anxious. No. Just wanted to activate the power of mind to remind the X-Men in the school to be ready. But the next second, the mutant whose memory was originally explored by Professor X suddenly put his hands directly on both sides of Professor X's temples. The next moment, a deep sleepiness swept over Professor X. He closed his eyes unwillingly. Hey, what are you doing? Seeing this sudden change, Senator Slack was also a little dumbfounded. No, the top leaders didn't say anything about this situation. Just wanted to interrupt the mutant's control over Professor X. As a result, the sound of gunshots rang out. Senator Slack was shot into a sieve. The next moment, a pair of fully armed elite soldiers rushed over quickly. Fight the mutant and the sleeping X and take him away directly. And no one knew all this. On the other side, mutant school. The mutant children were still playing in the school. But soon, the whistling missiles fell directly. A terrifying explosion sounded immediately. The fireballs that exploded were like the scythe of the god of death, harvesting these mutant children. Seeing that these mutant children were about to die under the explosion of the missiles, Grey Jean roared, "No!" accompanied by the breaking of the defense of the mind. The terrifying power burst out directly from Grey Jean's body. It turned into an unimaginable torrent of telekinesis, stopping all the explosions. After a while, the explosion disappeared. The mutant children were still in shock. And Grey Jean fell to the ground because of the sudden burst of too much power. Without waiting for the other X-Mont members reacted. A humanoid creature covered in black fell directly from the sky. Smashed through the building of the mutant school fiercely. Faced with this situation, even the battle-hardened X-Men were a little at a loss. It was the most experienced Wolverine who spoke first. Scott, Storm, you stay here and take care of Grey Jean. Others follow me, we're going to kill the intruder. Hearing this, the other X-Men found their backbone and quickly followed Wolverine into the building. The black figure that fell from the sky ignored the mutants it met along the way. Its purpose was quite clear, it was to get a crucial prop. Soon, it found its target. It stretched out its hands, and two red lasers immediately shot out of its hands. The alloy cast door was directly dismantled. Just when this black figure wanted to fly in, Wolverine and the others finally arrived. Hey, this is a private area. But the black figure didn't pay any attention to him at all. Seeing that his words were ignored, Wolverine was also angry. He stretched out his adamantium claws directly. The whole person rushed towards the uninvited guest like a wolf. But, almost in an instant, the black figure waved his hand and a huge magnetic force surged out. He propped up Wolverine's whole body. This is magnetism. Wolverine was dumbfounded. Mutants like him. He is not afraid of anything else, but magnetism. When he met a mutant with magnetic powers, he didn't even have the ability to resist and completely became a toy. When facing Magneto, he was like a large figurine. The kind that can be manipulated in any way you want. Let go of Logan. Dr. Beast Hank also rushed out. He punched the black figure. However, the black figure also punched back. The terrifying force sent Dr. Beast flying. He hit the alloy wall and vomited blood. The Iceman looked at his friend, who was injured in an instant, and was furious. He immediately opened his mouth and spit out a string of cold air. However, the next moment, the performance of this black figure surprised everyone. Its face turned red, like a red-hot iron. Then, hot flames erupted from its face. It directly suppressed the Iceman. A variety of mutant abilities, and can be switched at any time. The identity of this black figure is self-evident. It is the Sentinel robot. Charlotte was reading a book in the house. She was startled by a series of hurried footsteps. She turned her head and found that Mystique Raven had already run over anxiously. What's wrong? Charlotte was a little surprised. With Mystique's character, she shouldn't be so reckless. X Academy was attacked, and Professor X disappeared. And there is another guy of unknown origin in X Academy, who is destroying everywhere. Charlotte was stunned for a moment when she heard this. X Academy was destroyed. This shouldn't be. Because of Charlotte's appearance, the plot of X-Men has been completely changed. Logically speaking, this kind of thing shouldn't happen again. After all, since Charlotte's rise, General Trask's attention has been on Charlotte. Why is he still heading for X Academy? Could it be that the real purpose is actually himself? With this thought, Charlotte also put down the book in his hand. I see. I'll go check the situation now. Call Polaris back. There may be some big moves. Charlotte guessed something and quickly gave the order. Then, without waiting for Mystique's reply, Charlotte flew away quickly in front of her. 1 second after starting, a sonic boom cloud. And soon, the speed was getting faster and faster. On the other side, in the Special Operations Command, General Trask was staring at the screen. On the screen was Charlotte moving at high speed. Report to the General, the target is approaching X Academy at a speed of Mach 5. It is expected that the target will arrive at X Academy in at most 30 seconds. Hearing this, General Trask couldn't help but hammer the table. How could it be so fast? According to the military's information on Charlotte, his fastest speed should be around Mach 3. How did it become Mach 5 directly? So he had hidden his strength before, right? What's worse is that because of underestimation of Charlotte's speed. At this moment, it was too late to withdraw the Sentinel robots. General Trask had no choice but to give up decisively. Give the Sentinel robots an order to kill Charlotte with all their strength. Also, let our people bring Professor X back as soon as possible. The plan officially begins. X Academy. The mutants around have been completely defeated by the Sentinel robots. Even the strongest Wolverine almost had all his bones torn apart. But even so, he was pierced through the body by countless steel bars and could not move. Just when everyone was about to despair, Charlotte fell directly from the sky and landed in front of everyone. It took several seconds. The sound of the sonic boom sounded. The speed of sound propagation is not as fast as Charlotte's speed. This is Charlotte's mobility now. And witnessing Charlotte's arrival, the Sentinel robots also gave up their original goal directly, and all their attention was focused on Charlotte. Target locked, start clearing. Accompanied by the sound of the machine, the red laser shot out directly from the palm of the Sentinel robot. However, when it came to Charlotte, it was blocked by the vector shield. This is the Sentinel robot. Then let me test how strong it is. With this thought, Charlotte controlled the trajectory of the laser and deflected it directly. Reflected at an incredible sharp angle, it blasted directly at the Sentinel robot itself. Facing this attack, the Sentinel robot decisively held up the telekinetic shield. Blocked the gushing laser. But soon, it flew towards Charlotte again. Halfway through, its arms were directly transformed into some kind of alloy structure. This is the ability of Steel Warrior. Facing this attack, Charlotte stretched out his hand and spread his 5 fingers. The next moment, the Sentinel robot was like being hit by a high-speed train. It flew backwards directly and quickly. The powerful body knocked down several walls before it came to a stop. But this was just the beginning. Charlotte also used his speed and appeared in front of the Sentinel robot without waiting for it to stabilize. Then, he raised his fist and hit the face of the Sentinel robot directly. With the blessing of the vector, Charlotte's punch was earth-shattering. The Sentinel robot was directly blasted into the ground. Even the ground was directly blown into a huge deep pit. You can imagine how powerful this punch was. In fact, the ability of vector operation is not short. Whether it is long-range or close combat, it is extremely powerful. In addition, there are some special uses. For example, now, Charlotte controlled the vector and lifted a few stones in front of him. Then, all the vector operation capabilities were activated. A few stones immediately flew towards the Sentinel robot at a speed of more than Mach 7, like a cannonball. In the case of vector acceleration, even the most ordinary stones can also exert terrifying kinetic damage in Charlotte's hands. Almost impossible to resist. There are many holes on the body of the Sentinel robot. Following these holes, Charlotte can also see the dense circuit lines inside the Sentinel robot. It's really good. At the level of LV3, it can be said that there is no opponent. Even some slightly weaker LV4s may be killed by this kind of Sentinel robot. If there is only one, that's fine. But if there are too many of these Sentinel robots, I'm afraid even I have to stay away from them. The power of the Sentinel robot is unquestionable. In the original book, it almost killed the entire mutant race. Although the combat power of an individual is not particularly exaggerated. However, once the number increases, these Sentinel robots will really become a nightmare for mutants. It's just that it met Charlotte, so it's unlucky. Don't give the Sentinel robot a chance. The next moment, Charlotte came behind the Sentinel robot. And in its hand, it was holding the head of the Sentinel robot. Kill instantly. This is the difference in strength between the Sentinel robot and Charlotte now. On the screen, General Trask, who saw this scene, was speechless and choked up. Although he had guessed long ago that it was impossible to defeat Charlotte with just a Sentinel robot. However, losing so badly was still a bit outrageous. But as long as the plan can succeed, then everything is worth it. Come on, Charlotte, come to the grave I prepared for you. I have prepared too many good things for you. Thinking that Charlotte would die in his hands soon, General Trask couldn't help but roar. The ruins of X Academy. After killing the Sentinel robot, Charlotte also quickly explored the surrounding situation. After seeing the movement around, Charlotte immediately understood what the purpose of the Sentinel robot was. So, it's for this brainwave amplifier. Oh, so that's it, using this method to force me into a trap. It can be said to be deliberate. With Charlotte's current computing power. Just need to find a little clue. You can reverse the whole plan in minutes. And General Trask's plan is actually very simple. First, it is to kidnap Professor X and control him. Second, seize the brainwave amplifier and enhance Professor X's superpowers. Third, use Professor X as bait to lure him into the trap and then surround and kill him. After these 3 steps, any mutant may die. But Charlotte is different. Because, Charlotte was not fooled at all. After seeing through the trap, how could he dive into it again? Charlotte was not a fool. Next, just wait for General Trask to send out a signal. Believe it, it will come soon. Charlotte was confident and not worried at all. She had even planned to give General Trask and his men a big surprise later. On the other side, General Trask's place. When he saw Professor X and was sent in, General Trask had a confident smile on his face. Now, I'm not afraid that Charlotte won't take the bait. Ruling high-level officials, the plan can begin. Today is the day when Charlotte, the destroyer, will be destroyed by us. As General Trask's voice fell, screens appeared all around. America's shadow high-level officials, the real rulers of this huge empire, appeared in front of General Trask, looking at Professor X, and then at General Trask. An old man whose family name was written on the Declaration of Independence asked General Trask, "General Trask, are you sure you want to start the plan? Are you sure you have made foolproof preparations? You know, if we fail, what will be the consequences?" I don't blame these people for being cautious. In fact, this matter has too much impact. It is almost equivalent to completely breaking up with Charlotte. No, it is breaking up with all mutants. Once it is started, there is no turning back. Unless Charlotte is completely killed. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles. None of these people here will be able to sleep well in the future. Even America may be overthrown because of this. With such serious consequences, it is not too cautious. And facing this problem, General Trask was firm and confident. I am absolutely sure that Charlotte will die this time. This is also our last chance. Otherwise, if Charlotte continues to grow, there will be no possibility of defeating him. General Trask said seriously. Regarding Charlotte as an opponent, General Trask has studied too much. What impressed General Trask the most was not only Charlotte's almost godlike ability. More importantly, it was Charlotte's growth rate. It has only been a short time. Charlotte has already grown to this level. If Charlotte continues to grow, by then, there will be really no way to deal with him. Every time Charlotte appears, his strength almost leaps and bounds. Next time, who knows how powerful he will be. Therefore, this is indeed their last chance to kill Charlotte. If you miss it, it will never be possible again. Listening to General Trask's words and looking at the confidence in General Trask's eyes, these old men thought about General Trask's plan again. After confirming that it was really foolproof, the old man spoke. If that's the case, let's do it. This time, let's get rid of this destroyer for mankind. As these real celestial dragons made up their minds one by one, General Trask's face also became excited. If Charlotte's ability is like God, then today, he will become a godslayer. The one who kills gods. In the X-Men, still thinking about where Professor X is going. All the media in America, countless screens, all popped up a live broadcast interface. And the guy in the live broadcast is General Trask. And right next to General Trask, Professor X sat in a wheelchair like a puppet with his eyes dull. It is obvious that he has been completely controlled. And the person who controls Professor X is a mutant with a numb face. Few people know that this mutant with a numb face is actually General Trask's only son. General Trask's son is a mutant. His ability is hypnosis. His level has reached LV4. When he just awakened his ability, he unconsciously killed General Trask's wife, his own mother. It was also that accident that made General Trask completely collapse. Since then, he began to hate all mutants equally, including his own son. Even General Trask used cruel means to completely brainwash his own son. Became a hound. And this is also General Trask's real trump card. No extra nonsense. General Trask waited until the live broadcast became stable. He sneered at the screen. Then he said ruthlessly, "Charles, I order you to kill 100 mutants." As soon as the voice fell, all the mutants watching the live broadcast were dumbfounded. Then, there was endless fear. No one dared to guarantee that these 100 mutants would include themselves. And in the ruins of the X Academy, Scott of the X-Men shouted in disbelief, "Impossible, how could the professor do such a thing?" But as soon as he finished speaking, 3 mutant children from the X Academy died silently. The hypnotized Professor X used his mental power to directly wipe them out. Seeing this scene, Scott was about to collapse. And in the live broadcast, General Trask sneered and said, "From now on, I will let Charles kill 100 mutants every 10 minutes. Charlotte, do you want to stop me? Then come to me. Otherwise, you can only watch me kill all the mutants. Professor X's ability is enough to do this. His psychic ability is so strong that he can even control half of the planet. If Professor X is given enough time, he can kill all the mutants by himself. And this is the real bait that General Trask used to force Charlotte to jump into the trap. According to General Trask, either Charlotte watched Charles kill all the mutants, or she had to jump into the trap he carefully prepared and then be killed by General Trask. There was almost no third way to go. In a sense, this game was unsolvable. Because no matter what choice you made, it was wrong. Unless Charlotte didn't care about the lives of other mutants. However, as the leader of Charlotte's mutants, and Charlotte's ideal of creating a mutant country, he couldn't make such a choice. It was like an unsolvable trolley problem. It almost left Charlotte with no choice. But, unfortunately, Charlotte really chose to take the third way. It was just a casual chess move at the beginning. I didn't expect it to work. This is really a pleasant surprise. Listening to what General Trask said in the live video, Charlotte couldn't help laughing. As I said before, he has always been a selfish person. Everything he did was for himself, to harvest fear points. The so-called mutant leader, the so-called mutant country. They were just a pie in the sky that Charlotte drew casually. Unexpectedly, someone really believed it. General Trask's plan is really good. It can be called an open conspiracy. However, he made a fatal mistake. That is, his entire plan is based on Charlotte caring about the lives of mutants. Only when Charlotte cares about the entire mutant community, this plan can be unsolvable. But if Charlotte doesn't care about the lives of other mutants at all, then, this plan will be useless. All the arrangements of General Trask will become completely clowns. His performance can only make Charlotte laugh. But it's good this way, because this way, I can go crazy with a clear reason. Originally, Charlotte was still thinking about how to set up a grand enough stage for his third performance. Unexpectedly, General Trask directly helped Charlotte to build the stage. At this moment, it can be said that people all over the world are looking forward to Charlotte's reaction. In this case, how could Charlotte disappoint people? Standing on the ruins of X Academy, Charlotte slowly rose. In conjunction, a large area of land nearby began to shake continuously. The other X-Men also looked at Charlotte at this time. Some people didn't understand what he wanted to do. But soon, they understood. With the full deployment of Charlotte's vector operation, the ground with a radius of more than 10 kilometers was directly lifted up. And finally, it turned into a huge cylinder with a diameter of more than 10 kilometers and a thickness of more than 400 meters. And Charlotte, with this huge cylinder, rose higher and higher. At this moment, even a fool knew what Charlotte was going to do. The X-Men were all shocked by Charlotte's madness. Wait a minute, Charlotte, do you know what the consequences of doing this will be? You will cause an unprecedented disaster. Many people will die, do you know? Facing Storm's shout, Charlotte just replied calmly, I know. But this is exactly my purpose. If there are no mutants in this world, then humans should not exist. Charlotte's calm voice was filled with chilling murderous intent. It was a murderous intent that regarded the people of the world as ants. It can be called a declaration of annihilation. Such words directly shocked the other X-Men, and they were all speechless. Even those who knew that Charlotte was very extreme. At this time, they could only comment silently in their hearts. Charlotte, this is really too extreme. What is that? The Earth is flying up. Wait, it can't be the mutants who did it. Cool, this scene is really cool. Cool, if this falls down, everyone will die. Run, it will be too late if you don't run. X Academy is located in the suburbs of New York. There are many humans living around. Therefore, when Charlotte rose into the sky with a huge Earth, many people witnessed this shocking scene. When shrouded by a huge shadow, everyone felt that 75 million years ago, the dinosaurs feeling. The world is destroyed. New York, which was originally well organized, was instantly in chaos. Countless people fled crying. But this behavior is no longer meaningful. On the other side, General Trask, who was hiding in a secret trap, looking at the scene above New York City. The whole person was frozen in place. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Charlotte, He is really too extreme. How could you do this? You can't do this. Why did it develop like this? Shouldn't Charlotte honestly jump into his trap and be killed by himself? Why? Why can you choose this way? General Trask's panic did not last too long. Because soon, one video after another appeared around him. It was the video calls from those old people. And these old people no longer had the high-handed attitude they had before. Only fear and hysteria remained. Trask, is this what you said? No accidents. This is what you said, there must be no problem. Look at what is happening now. You have angered a god, and now he is coming to destroy the world. Trask, you must take all the responsibility, you will be the sinner of all mankind. No matter what method you use, stop him, you must stop him. No, we can't continue to escalate, if we continue like this, we will all die. What to talk about, we must talk about it. No matter what the price, we must calm his anger. Those old people who were still dreaming of killing Charlotte in the last second. And ruling the world again. At this moment, they are like frightened wild dogs. In addition to screaming in fear, they can't do anything. And General Trask seemed to be unable to hear these voices. He only had one thought left. Absolutely, absolutely, at all costs, kill Charlotte. But it's impossible. Above New York City, Charlotte has reached an altitude of more than 6,000 meters with the huge layer of soil he lifted. After feeling the height, Charlotte felt that it should be enough. In this case, let's start. At this moment, let the whole world feel what fear is. What is the declaration of annihilation? Under Charlotte's control, the meteorite-like soil layer stopped rising. Then, captured by gravity, it fell at a very fast speed. Accompanied by the violent friction with the atmosphere, the entire soil layer was wrapped in flames. In the eyes of others, this scene is extinction. When a huge layer of soil, like a meteorite, fell from the sky with flames and roars, everyone in New York fell silent at this moment. Everyone knew that this time, there was nowhere to escape. As the huge layer of soil got closer and closer to the ground, the terrifying pressure also fell directly on New York. First, many buildings in New York exploded into countless fragments. Then, the ground in New York began to sink under the huge pressure. Finally, a huge roar sounded. The terrifying impact directly led to a shocking explosion. The sparks were as high as tens of thousands of meters, and a huge mushroom cloud suddenly appeared on the earth. Under the terrifying impact, with the impact site as the center, a tsunami-like shock wave swept in all directions. The forest made of steel was torn into pieces and turned into dust as easily as paper under this unmatched shock wave. Countless humans, in this world-destroying catastrophe, did not even have time to scream, and turned into ashes. Between heaven and earth, only the roar of destruction continued to sound. And Charlotte stood high in the sky, watching the destruction he had caused with cold eyes. He did not regret everything he had done. Even if it led to the deaths of at least tens of millions of people. God's power is like a prison, it is like this. The terrifying impact triggered a violent explosion. The terrifying explosion led to a terrible chain reaction. First, the shock wave. Spreading hundreds of kilometers. Its power, even if it is hundreds of kilometers away, can still easily destroy buildings and tear apart human bodies. Secondly, it is the damage caused by the impact to the continental shelf. The continental shelf that supports New York City and even the entire New York state. Under this violent impact, it also broke directly. The most direct consequence is the land of New York sinks. At this moment, the surging sea water turned into the final sickle of the god of death. The huge tsunami of hundreds of meters, with the momentum of swallowing everything, swallowed the entire New York City into the seabed. Perhaps a few years later. In addition to the mysterious Atlantis, there will be another New York City in the legend of the underwater city. In short, under Charlotte's destruction, the huge New York has completely become history. In addition, many nearby areas have also become hell. It is no exaggeration to say that Charlotte directly crushed the land on the west coast of America. Some inland places have directly become coastal areas. And the indirect culprit of all this, General Trask, has completely collapsed in his seat. Looking at the horrific scene transmitted in the video, he couldn't even speak. Only deep fear remained. At this moment, he finally understood why things turned out like this. The answer is simple. All of them were wrong about Charlotte. Charlotte was not someone who could be manipulated. He was an extremely selfish guy. His so-called status as the leader of the mutants was completely fake. He pretended to be so as to mislead others. General Trask was fooled by this. He used the same method to deal with the leader of the mutants to deal with a selfish guy. How could such a plan not fail, and how could it have a chance to win? However, at this point, General Trask could only choose to fight for the last time. He knew that if he hesitated any longer, he would have no chance. Those real high-level officials in America would not give him a chance. So, if he wanted to do something, this was the only time. Without hesitation, General Trask gave orders to all the Sentinel robots. With the order, more than 20 Sentinel robots were dispatched. All flew towards the sky above New York City. General Trask was going to use these 20 or so Sentinel robots to fight Charlotte for the last time. Even though he knew that the possibility of winning this time was very small. But this was the only thing he could do. On the other side, America's senior officials. They also split into two factions. One faction advocated not to talk to Charlotte, or to put it bluntly, to admit defeat and surrender. The other faction planned to die with Charlotte. Along with America, the launch silos of military bases were opened one after another. More than 300 nuclear weapons flew towards Charlotte at a very fast speed. If one nuclear weapon was not a threat to Charlotte, then 300 of them would be used together. Anyway, New York is gone now. So what's there to worry about? And Charlotte was floating in the sky at this time. Feeling the increasingly powerful computing power and ability. The whole person showed a satisfied smile. Accelerator template fusion degree, 98%. Converted to mutant level. LV5, Omega level. This is the highest level mutant known so far. Its meaning is unlimited. Soon, very soon, Accelerator's template will be fully upgraded. Then, new templates will be unlocked again. I'm really looking forward to it. What will be the next template? Charlotte was looking forward to it. But soon, he noticed the Sentinel robots flying towards him from a distance. There are quite a lot of them, what a pity. Before, I was trapped in a small space, these Sentinel robots might have been useful. But now, it's over. Charlotte thought lightly. Yes, it's over. General Trask's previous idea was not wrong. He did find a way to kill Charlotte theoretically. But the problem is that Charlotte himself has thought of the same way. As a user of vector operation, how could he not know the weakness of his ability? How could he not know the limit of vector operation? Because he knew this, Charlotte knew better how to defeat or even kill himself. Naturally, Charlotte would not go to any place related to these factors. So from the beginning, General Trask's plan was impossible to succeed. His plan had long been seen through by Charlotte. This is the benefit of using your brain more. But now, it doesn't matter. The LV5 level of superpowers and the LV4 level of superpowers are completely two different concepts. If you have to describe it, heaven and earth, the gap is so big. For example, these 20 or so Sentinel robots. Before, Charlotte might have to work hard. But now, vector operation started. In an instant, all these Sentinel robots collapsed. They didn't even last a second. Killed instantly, without any suspense. This is the fate of the Sentinel robots in front of the LV5 mutants. After killing these Sentinel robots, Charlotte did not relax his vigilance. Because in addition to these, the real killer move is still behind. That is a dense group of tactical nuclear missiles. Look at the number, more than 300. So many tactical nuclear missiles, once all exploded. Not to mention Charlotte. Even Superman would have to die here. But the same thing. In a powerful attack, it is useless if you can't hit it. With a thought, Charlotte's figure instantly began to rise rapidly. In just a few moments, he appeared at an altitude of more than 30,000 meters. Then, he randomly found a direction and flew away quickly. At this moment, Charlotte's speed was full. Let everyone know what the limit is. Mach 33. Far exceeds the speed of any human aircraft currently known. This is Charlotte's current strength. And in front of this speed, nuclear bombs are not worth mentioning at all. Even if the nuclear bomb exploded right next to Charlotte's face, he would still dare to leave quickly when the shock wave of the nuclear bomb explosion came in front of him. He was so invincible. The exaggerated speed made Charlotte completely become a sharp sword at this time. The atmosphere in the sky was separated into a straight channel. In just half a minute, Charlotte had completely left the area where New York was located. Behind him, there was only the mushroom cloud rising continuously. But such a distance was no longer a threat to Charlotte. Although these nuclear bombs are completely useless to me. But I didn't suffer the blow in vain and didn't fight back. Then give America another gift. With this idea in mind, Charlotte's speed was used again. The whole person also came directly to the east coast of America in a very short time. Then, Charlotte stretched out his hand to the Rocky Mountains below. Under the pull of the vector operation, the huge Rocky Mountains were lifted up by Charlotte and rose into the air. The long and majestic Rocky Mountains seemed to have turned into a giant dragon at this moment. Appeared above America. However, what this dragon brought was not auspiciousness, but death. Looking at the rise of the huge Rocky Mountains, everyone closed their eyes silently. When the gods judged the world, any struggle was in vain. Considering that the Rocky Mountains were too huge, Charlotte did not raise the Rocky Mountains too high. Otherwise, he would only destroy the surface of the earth. This was not the result Charlotte wanted. What he wanted was people's fear of him. Instead of destroying the surface directly. If the surface was really destroyed, how could he earn fear points? So this time, the Rocky Mountains rose to a height of about 1,000 meters. Charlotte directly withdrew his control over the Rocky Mountains. Let the Rocky Mountains fall freely. When in the air, the Rocky Mountains began to disintegrate. This also weakened the power of the Rocky Mountains' impact this time. But even so, the destructive power caused by the Rocky Mountains, it was still exaggerated. The thick earth turned into a paper shell at this moment and was easily crushed. Its power even reached the continental shelf below. The surrounding continental shelf was directly broken. Countless magmas were squeezed and splashed thousands of meters into the sky along the cracks. This piece of land has completely turned into purgatory. What followed was a ruthless tsunami. The tsunami was like a giant wall, pushing away everything that blocked it. The city was submerged, the land was swallowed up, and civilization was destroyed. Charlotte's nickname of the Destroyer was completely worthy of its name at this moment. This time, the damage caused by Charlotte. Even in space, it can be seen clearly. Half of the eastern part of America was wiped out. It no longer exists. What is the end of the world? This is it. After 2 consecutive times, let humans experience the joy of dinosaurs. Charlotte, as a matter of course, harvested countless fear values. The astronomical fear value directly made Charlotte max out the template of Accelerator. At the same time as Accelerator's template was maxed out, he also unlocked a new template. General Zod, the man from Krypton. Looking at the newly loaded template, Charlotte touched his chin. Why are all his templates villains? But it's okay. It doesn't matter whether they are villains or not. As long as just be strong enough. With this thought in mind, Charlotte randomly found a place and plunged down. Accelerator template fusion is complete, plus the new template is loaded. Charlotte is going to fall into a deep sleep for a while. Charlotte fell into a deep sleep. No more trouble. However, the fear he brought to mankind is getting more and more intense. With the passage of time, the damage caused by Charlotte has been counted by various countries using satellite data. And this data is so terrifying that everyone is terrified. First of all, the number of casualties. Charlotte's 2 destructions directly caused the death of more than 100 million people. The number reached 1/3 of the total population of America. And this is just the beginning. Because the damage caused by Charlotte is too great. In addition to the most direct damage, there are endless subsequent damage. For example, Charlotte almost shattered a part of the crust of the American continent. As a direct result, the crust structure of the American continent is no longer stable. Later, the American continent will enter a period of extremely terrible frequent earthquakes. In addition, countless dust surged into the atmosphere. In the next 10 years, the atmosphere will be obscured by these dusts. At that time, the sunlight reaching the surface will inevitably decrease by more than 50%. It will cause a large number of animals and plants to die. At the same time, it will also cause the surface temperature to drop by 5-10 degrees. An ice age is absolutely inevitable. It can be said that the damage caused by Charlotte. It can be compared with those famous mass extinction events in the history of Blue Star. He single-handedly changed the geological activities of this planet permanently. Many years later in the future, his name will still be remembered. His behavior will also be feared by everyone. This is the impact that Charlotte has on this planet. And as the most direct victim, the Order of America completely collapsed at the first moment. The cruel battle royale mode of the whole nation was launched. The government of America completely lost the ability to maintain the social foundation. The whole of America, and even the whole of America, all entered a state of anarchy. Turmoil, fighting, and death became the main theme of America. America at this moment. It really fulfilled the old saying. Too far from heaven, too close to Charlotte. Under Charlotte's tossing, America is completely GG. The east and west coasts exploded. As a result, the social order collapsed. Those who used to claim to be noble also fell to the bottom at this time. Too many upper-class people who used to be glamorous have fallen into a situation where life is worse than death. It can be said that Charlotte has directly completed the reshuffle of America's power order with his own strength. Too many people have risen in this turmoil. And the chaotic situation has also created good conditions for mutants. Relying on the God-given superpowers, the power of mutants rose in a very short time. In a sense, Charlotte did what he said. He did make mutants great again. It's just that the means were a little extreme. This also led to the fact that there are still many mutants who regard Charlotte as an idol. But these mutants definitely do not include members of the X-Men. At the beginning, when Charlotte destroyed New York City, some of the X-Men saw that the situation was not good, and hurriedly fled with the help of Storm. They escaped the disaster at the beginning and barely survived. However, many people still died in that disaster. This is the blood feud of killing their partners. In addition, through this incident, the X-Men have seen through Charlotte's true face. They all know that Charlotte is not the savior of mutants. He is just a lunatic, a madman. A madman who only wants to watch the world burn and wants the world to be afraid. However, this madman is too powerful. So powerful that the X-Men have no confidence to fight against him. Just when the remaining members of the X-Men were staying together in a daze and fell into despair, suddenly, a familiar call rang in their ears. Kids, I'm sorry I messed this up. But we have to do something. We have to destroy Charlotte for the sake of this world. It's Professor X, he's still alive. 10 days after Charlotte fell into a deep sleep. An underground base somewhere in the interior of America. The X-Men arrived here. And saw Professor X, Magneto and the others. It is worth mentioning that Polaris also survived. Following Magneto. Both eyes were full of hatred. Professor, it's great to see that you're okay. But, why are you here? In the previous disaster, Cyclops Scott, who lost an arm, asked Professor X. He followed Professor X's call and rushed all the way here. He didn't understand why Professor X was here. Isn't this underground base the one where Professor X was controlled and broadcast live? Facing Scott's question, Professor X replied, because of Charlotte. He is too extreme. He destroyed America and the world. Single quote. In order to prevent him from doing things that threaten the world again, we must stop him. So, General Trask released me. Now, humans and mutants have a common enemy, Charlotte. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In the past, General Trask wanted to catch all the mutants at the scene. But now, he just wants Charlotte to die. With extreme hatred for Charlotte. General Trask is even willing to cooperate with Professor X, and even willing to accept humans and mutants to live in peace. This is the change brought by Charlotte. Facing these words, Scott was speechless. Indeed, compared with Charlotte, the madman who destroyed the world, General Trask seems too gentle. We were all deceived. Charlotte is not a savior at all. He is an out-and-out extremist. Unfortunately, we trusted him wrongly, otherwise we would have had a chance to kill him in advance. Magneto also spoke at this time. He was really impressed by Charlotte's arrogance. Too extreme. Originally, Magneto was excited to meet Charlotte and discuss how to form a mutant kingdom in the future. As a result, as soon as he arrived near New York City, he saw a huge meteorite falling. Magneto was dumbfounded at the time. If he hadn't been strong enough, he might have died in New York at that time. But even so, the group of members of the Brotherhood of Mutants brought by Magneto also suffered heavy casualties. Only a few survived. Even Mystique died in the disaster. Also, it was influenced by this. Now Magneto only wants to kill Charlotte. He doesn't want to listen to Charlotte talking about the mutant kingdom anymore. With Charlotte's character, if he really established a mutant kingdom, it would never be a paradise on Earth, but a demonic kingdom on Earth shrouded by his terror. That's why Charlotte must die. If he doesn't die, it will be a disaster for the whole world. For this reason, Magneto is the same as General Trask. He put down his hatred for humans. He just wanted to kill Charlotte first. Finally, after some discussions, humans and mutants decided to form an alliance. Work together to get rid of Charlotte, the scourge, for the world. But here comes the problem. Where is Charlotte now? Ever since Charlotte used the Rocky Mountains to send the coast of America into the sea, he disappeared from the world. Now, no one knows where he is hiding. Faced with this question, General Trask spoke up. I should know where he is now. In fact, I have been investigating his location these days. With a large number of drones and sentinel robots, I have roughly found where Charlotte is now. After confirming Charlotte's location and gathering enough forces, the next thing to do is very simple and clear. That is to attack with the entire army to kill Charlotte. I can arrange a plane for you, but I have a condition. General Trask said. His words made many mutants frown. But soon, this dissatisfaction disappeared. Because General Trask continued, I hope you will let me go with you. With General Trask's strength, it can be said that he is seeking death to get involved in a fight with a group of gods. Any aftermath of the battle is estimated to be enough to kill him. He himself knows this. But he still has to go. Because he really hates Charlotte. This catastrophe, in the final analysis, originated from me. I have made a huge and irreparable mistake to this world. Now, I just want to correct this mistake, even if it means losing my life. Just consider it as my atonement. General Trask said resolutely. If Charlotte is the culprit of this catastrophe, then, he is definitely the deputy director. He has made an indelible contribution to the current situation. Even for those who died. He will use his life to atone for this sin. After expressing his determination, no one objected. In the end, General Trask and other mutants went to where Charlotte was. At the same time, on the other side, Charlotte also opened his eyes. After waking up, his first reaction was, I am so strong now. Charlotte now feels that he can smash a mountain with one punch. Even if he only relies on his own physique, he now has the confidence to beat the LV-4 mutant. This is the terrifying thing about General Zod. After simply adapting to his current surge and strength, Charlotte quickly squandered his fear value. All added to the General Zod template. It can be seen with the naked eye that General Zod's fusion degree has soared to 47%. This makes Charlotte's physique even more abnormal. Although not every Kryptonian is a Superman. However, General Zod is definitely half a Superman. You can imagine how strong he is. Here we go again. Just right, let's test my current strength. Charlotte relied on the super hearing of General Zod to hear the mutants rushing towards him from a distance. Originally, he wanted to use his superpowers to crush all these guys to death. But now he has changed his plan. Let these mutants try his current physique. With this idea, Charlotte squatted down slightly. Then, the whole person suddenly exerted force. Like a rocket, he rushed into the air quickly. Within 1 second, there were several consecutive sound explosions. And his speed was still accelerating. And on the plane. On the big screen in front of many mutants. A red dot was approaching quickly. Attention, the target is approaching, the target is approaching. The speed is over Mach 30, and it is rushing towards us. Estimated arrival time, 10, 9, 8, 1. Coming. As soon as the voice fell, there were bursts of explosions in the intercom. That was the sound of many fighters coming together being smashed by Charlotte. After realizing that the battle had begun, many mutants hurried to the windows of the plane. Then they saw that Charlotte kept turning back in the air. At an exaggerated speed, he kept smashing those fighters. At this time, Charlotte was like the most terrible bullet, shooting birds in the sky. This guy has become stronger again. Looking at the destructive power shown by Charlotte, Scott gritted his teeth. Compared with the last time, in New York, Charlotte's performance at this time is undoubtedly more exaggerated. Guys, we have to land, otherwise we won't have a chance of winning if we fight him here. Nightwalker, please. Nightwalker, a mutant with the ability to flicker in space. After hearing the order, Nightwalker nodded nervously. Okay, I know, I'm a little nervous, but it doesn't matter, I can do it. Everyone come to me, I'll send you back to the ground. Let's go together. Accompanied by smoke bursting. The next moment, everyone disappeared in the cabin of the plane in an instant. When they reappeared, they were already high above the ground. Standing here, looking at the battlefield above, it was clearer. I saw that the sky above everyone was densely packed with various fighters. But these fighters did not show their previous combat power. Instead, under Charlotte's continuous destruction, they turned into fireworks. Blooming in the air. Everyone witnessed Charlotte making a sharp turn in the air that did not conform to the laws of physics. This maneuverability is simply outrageous. Let's get started. We can't let him continue to destroy like this. As Professor X's voice fell, many mutants used their own abilities one after another. For a time, various attacks spanned hundreds of meters or even thousands of meters in height. Shot towards Charlotte. It was like an anti-aircraft gun hitting a mosquito. Therefore, Charlotte stopped destroying the fighter planes. After easily dodging these attacks, he smiled with interest. The people came in a pretty neat row. In that case, I'll have some fun with you. The next second, with Charlotte's thought, hundreds and thousands of fighter planes in the sky all exploded in an instant and turned into dust all over the sky. And Charlotte also dived directly from the air at an extremely fast speed. With a series of sonic booms, he fell directly down like a meteorite. Boom. Accompanied by a loud roar. An unlucky mutant was hit directly by Charlotte. The body turned into blood mist in an instant. And that's not all. Because immediately afterwards, Charlotte crashed through the mountain and flew out from the other side of the mountain. And all this, Charlotte did not use his vector operation ability. Completely relying on the current abnormal level of steel body. Huh, so cool. Quote. Charlotte couldn't help but admire. Before obtaining the General Zod template, Charlotte's vector operation is indeed powerful. However, his physique is very average. Not much stronger than ordinary people. This also led to Charlotte often having to use vector operations to protect himself. Fighting is not refreshing at all. But now, it's different. The Kryptonian steel body allows Charlotte to revel in it. If combined with vector operation, his strength will be even more terrifying. This allows Charlotte to completely let go of his scruples and revel in it. At the same time, other mutants also glared at Charlotte, who was floating in the air. Especially Polaris. The look in his eyes when he looked at Charlotte was as if he wanted to eat Charlotte. You liar, you deceived me, and you will pay the price for it. Quote. Polaris roared at Charlotte. How crazy she was about Charlotte before. So now, how much she hated Charlotte. She thought that Charlotte was a leader worth pursuing. She was her mentor in life. But in fact, Charlotte was a crazy lunatic. The gap was too big. So much so that Polaris's hatred for Charlotte was definitely one of the highest among those present. Under extreme hatred, Polaris also burst out with extreme power. In front of her, the terrifying electromagnetic energy was constantly gathering. After a while, the huge electromagnetic cannon attacked Charlotte. Then, Charlotte did not dodge and let the electromagnetic cannon fall on her body. As a result, she was naturally unscathed. Even her clothes were not damaged. Biological force field, boy. Polaris, I am very pleased that you have grown up. It is worth my training you before. Quote. What a pity, you shouldn't have come. Charlotte was not angry about Polaris's attack. Instead, she said it with interest. Just like a cat, it won't eat a mouse right away. Charlotte was not in a hurry to kill everyone in an instant. After unlocking the template of General Zod, Charlotte's strength is more than several times stronger than before. In the past, facing the siege of these mutants, he might still be a little tricky. At least it's not so simple to solve it neatly. But now, there is no pressure at all. It was easily crushed. However, just when Charlotte thought that this battle was about to end, Suddenly, a strong breath came from behind Charlotte. Turning around, Charlotte found that it was Grey Jean, who was squatting on the ground with her head in her arms. Charlotte frowned slightly, and he probably guessed what was going to happen. The result was indeed so. Accompanied by Grey Jean's painful roar. A powerful telekinesis like a tsunami broke out in all directions with her as the center. The terrifying telekinesis pushed everything around, directly forming a huge vacuum no man's land. Even Charlotte was impacted, and the whole person was directly blown away hundreds of meters away. When she came back to her senses, Grey Jean had already transformed. No, not Gretchen to be exact. It was the powerful Phoenix girl who was born. Grey Jean. Her ability was telekinesis. Level 5, Omega level mutant. However, because her power was too strong, Professor X was worried that she would lose control and use this power to cause irreparable damage. He simply sealed her up. This also led to Grey Jean's usual power being only level 3. Compared to her heyday, it was completely different. But now, with the death of Professor X and the death of many members of the X-Men, Grey Jean, in extreme grief and anger, encouraged the power of the Phoenix Girl and broke through the seal directly. A level 5 mutant in her heyday was born. After feeling the powerful power she now possessed, Phoenix Girl turned her head and looked at Charlotte. There was a murderous intent in his eyes. Although I am very grateful to you for killing that old thing. But, unfortunately, this world does not need two kings. Phoenix Girl said to Charlotte. At this time, she was suspended in the air, stepping on the air. Although she did not do anything, she could put great pressure on Charlotte. This is, the LV5 Omega level mutant. The meaning of Omega is infinite. Really? Then let's try it. Charlotte's expression was solemn, but he was not too afraid. He could still fight against a LV5 mutant. And Charlotte had figured it out long before this. This is the simple world of X-Men. Not the complicated American comic world. Therefore, the strength of Phoenix Girl is just her own mutant ability. Not the Phoenix Force. Therefore, Charlotte does not think she will lose. If it is the Phoenix Force version of Phoenix Girl, then Charlotte ran away without saying anything. The power of the multiverse level is indeed not something he can deal with. But if it is just a LV5 mutant, he still has a chance to win. Phoenix Girl didn't say much. After confirming the hostile relationship between each other, she directly attacked Charlotte. The huge telekinesis crushed and turned into a huge millstone that could not be seen with the naked eye. And Charlotte was in this millstone. The terrifying power was constantly destroying Charlotte's vitality. Even with the defense of Kryptonians, it was a little difficult to resist at this time. The LV5 mutant is indeed powerful enough. But, LV5 superpowers. Who doesn't have it? After realizing that he was no match for Phoenix Girl with his physique alone, Charlotte also decisively used the ability of vector operation. The huge vector was instantly mastered by Charlotte. Then, the terrifying vector and Phoenix Girl's telekinesis collided with each other. At the moment of the collision, the surrounding celestial phenomena changed immediately. The clouds in the sky seemed to be torn apart and spread to both sides. Like two armies facing each other, they were opposed to each other. And under the feet of the two, the earth was also overwhelmed by the confrontation between the two. Accompanied by violent vibrations, a huge crack was directly torn out of the ground under the feet of the two. The crack was tens of kilometers long and thousands of meters deep. And it was still expanding. Whether it was Charlotte or Phoenix Girl, they were unwilling to admit defeat in their abilities. So, they increased their output of power. This directly led to the destruction caused by the two becoming more and more exaggerated. The shock wave caused by the huge energy collision. At some point, it turned into a terrifying gale. The level of the gale also rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, it reached the maximum value of wind speed that humans have been able to observe. It is still soaring. At the same time, a series of tornadoes like pillars of heaven were also created. Enraged towards a farther place. And in the center area where the two people collided, the surrounding space began to be unstable, and a strange phenomenon of space folds appeared. As a result, almost all the light around was swallowed up. The visibility nearby was rapidly reduced. The human countries that observed this scene through satellites held their breath nervously at this time. They were afraid that the two big guys would fight and accidentally smash the entire planet. But some things can't be avoided by worrying. In a strange, click, sound, the surrounding space finally couldn't bear the endless terrifying pressure of cubic meters. It began to be torn apart, and dark cracks appeared. Charlotte was also startled, but at this time, the arrow was already on the string and had to be shot. So, he ignored these space cracks and let them continue to spread. The Phoenix girl opposite him was the same. Knowing that if they continued, it would most likely result in mutual destruction. However, no one was willing to give up easily. The current situation did not allow them to give up. They could only resist. So, in the end, accompanied by the appearance of the purest black point, the terrifying attraction broke out. Countless soil, air, and clouds were all sucked into this black point. This time, even Charlotte was dumbfounded. He never expected it. In the battle with the Phoenix girl, the huge power of the two people collided, which could directly create black holes and singularities. This is really the end of the world. What's worse is that Charlotte and the Phoenix girl have been captured by the gravity of the black hole at this time. No one can escape. Because now, none of them can use the speed of light. They can only watch themselves being pulled into the black hole by gravity. Under the constant tearing of the black hole's gravity, Charlotte is fine, the body of the Kryptonian is strong enough. But Phoenix is different. Her body was torn apart immediately. Then, the energy body transformed by her consciousness was quickly absorbed by the black hole. Looking at the end of Phoenix, Charlotte thought, this should be her victory. Then, everything went black. As for Polaris, Charlotte didn't have any ill feelings towards her. She didn't think of killing her. Even now, Polaris attacked him, but Charlotte didn't have any killing intention towards her. The dragon didn't care about the hatred of an ant. Anyway, the ant couldn't threaten him. And Polaris, after hearing what Charlotte said, he was so angry. Shut up, you pervert. I believed your lies before, and really thought you were someone worth following. But you are just a lunatic, you lied to me. Polaris hated Charlotte so much. She even fantasized about building a mutant country with Charlotte. However, this beautiful fantasy was broken by Charlotte herself. Facing Polaris's questioning, Charlotte spread his hands and said, I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Originally, I really wanted to build a mutant country for fun. But General Trask has set the atmosphere to this point. If I don't do something extreme, it will be too inconsistent with my personality. In fact, Charlotte didn't think about it at first. He wanted to destroy the world. His original intention was to drop a few nuclear bombs. However, General Trask's plan directly escalated things to a level that Charlotte didn't expect. General Trask has publicly said that he wants to kill all mutants. Charlotte can't be less extreme than General Trask. So, he can only choose to destroy the world. Of course, destroying the world can harvest more fear points, which is also a very important reason. There are many reasons. But there is only one fact. No matter what Charlotte thinks, it is an indisputable fact that he destroyed the world. Therefore, the mutants had nothing to say to him. They were destined to be enemies, so let's go to war. Polaris also gave up the idea of communicating with Charlotte. He directly mobilized his huge magnetic force. The super electromagnetic gun burst out again. And Magneto also controlled the fighter wreckage scattered in the sky, forming a huge metal storm together, trying to engulf Charlotte. Other mutants also showed their magical powers at this moment. All kinds of superpowers shone brightly in this one. Unfortunately, the opponent they faced was Charlotte. Ignoring Polaris's super electromagnetic gun, his body directly smashed Magneto's metal storm. Then, Charlotte went full speed again. Killed the mutants around him one by one. Cyclops Scott was instantly approached by Charlotte, and one hand pinched his neck and lifted him up. The next moment, the heat ray burst out, burning Scott's brain directly. Wolverine Logan was hit in the chest by Charlotte's punch, and all the flesh and blood on his body flew out instantly. Even the adamantium skeleton was bent by Charlotte. The terrifying force directly blew up Wolverine's body tissue. Only a metal skeleton remained. With such an injury, even Wolverine would not survive. Magneto was also approached by Charlotte. Ignoring Magneto's hateful eyes, Charlotte reached out and pinched his head. The helmet and the skull were crushed together. Then it was Storm, Professor X, Dr. Beast, and Colossus. One by one, the members of the X-Men were blown up and broken by Charlotte. And the other members of the X-Men didn't even have a chance to react. Not to mention stopping Charlotte's killing, they couldn't even see Charlotte's movements clearly. Despair, powerlessness, anger. Countless emotions intertwined in the hearts of the survivors. But it was all useless. At this moment, Charlotte truly showed these mutants what it meant to be the ultimate villain. Seeing his comrades around him getting fewer and fewer, General Trask broke free from despair. He roared at Charlotte, "Come on, you fool. Come and fight me like a man. I should have killed you at all costs. I really regret not taking you seriously." General Trask was completely crazy at this moment. His guilt towards the world and his hatred towards Charlotte were all intertwined. And in the end, his sanity completely collapsed. He had only one idea now. That was to let Charlotte come out. He and Charlotte would have the last duel of their lives. As he wished, Charlotte showed up in front of him. Seeing this scene, General Trask raised the spear in his hand. He trembled at Charlotte. "That's it," Charlotte taunted. He did not regard General Trask's gun as a threat at all. However, seeing Charlotte's arrogant look, General Trask was not angry but happy. What he wanted was Charlotte's arrogance. In this way, he would have a chance to shoot Charlotte to death. Without hesitation, after aiming at Charlotte's vitals, General Trask pulled the trigger directly. The bullet flew out quickly and flew towards Charlotte. Just when General Trask thought that even if he could not kill Charlotte this time, he could at least seriously injure him. The bottom laner reached out and took the bullet. Adamantium bullets are indeed a little threatening to me. But unfortunately, only a little bit. Charlotte played with the adamantium bullet in his hand and said to General Trask in a murderous way. Then he crushed the bullet completely in front of General Trask. However, what puzzled Charlotte was that what flowed out of the bullet was not gunpowder, but blood. Seeing Charlotte's confusion, it was General Trask's turn to laugh this time. "Are you confused? Let me tell you. The blood in it is the blood of a mutant. And the greatest ability of this mutant is to destroy other mutants. Now that you have been stained by this blood, your ability is useless. Devil, go to hell." It turned out that the blood in this bullet was the real killer. It was General Trask's real trump card against Charlotte. But unfortunately, he failed again. "Not a bad plan, but why do you think that my strength is because of mutants?" Charlotte taunted. "The reason why he is so powerful is because of the template, accelerator, and General Zod. It has nothing to do with mutants. And this is also Charlotte's secret that has never been revealed." General Trask, of course, didn't know this. In other words, he once again made a serious misjudgment of Charlotte's situation. In this case, how could he defeat Charlotte? Watching hope turn into despair in an instant. General Trask was completely heartbroken. Before he died, he stared at Charlotte and said word by word, "You are a demon, you will not die well." Charlotte was speechless. Just silently pulled General Trask's head off. Then he said, "Yes, but I am a powerful demon, I will not die." Kansas, on a farm. At a certain moment in the night, a hot meteor streaked across the sky. Without any deceleration, it fell directly to the ground. The violent explosion attracted the owner who was sleeping in the house to go out to check the situation. When the owner came to the crash site carefully with a shotgun, he found a figure slowly crawling out of the pit. And this person was Charlotte. "Bah, bad luck, is this still the world of X-Men? What are you doing to me?" Charlotte stood up and cursed. Since being swallowed by the black hole, he suffered a lot of space turbulence damage. But fortunately, the physique of Kryptonians is really awesome. Coupled with the protection of vector operation, he survived countless space turbulence. And found an opportunity to escape from the space turbulence. I just don't know what world he fell into. You, what kind of monster are you? Alien, or a freak created by water company? Answer me, or I'll shoot. Charlotte was a little upset when someone pointed a gun at him. But more attention was paid to what this person said. Water company. Wouldn't he run into the Black Robe Patrol team? Out of caution, Charlotte wanted to know more about the specific situation of this world. So as not to accidentally run to a place that is too dangerous. And this requires the cooperation of this guy in front of him. Just when Charlotte wanted this guy with a gun to cooperate with him to understand this world. With a bang, he fired. Charlotte was stunned. Are you so brave? I fell directly from the sky and was unscathed. You dare to shoot me? Who can be so fierce? In this man's terrified eyes, Charlotte slowly flew up. Then he grabbed his neck and lifted him off the ground. If you don't want to die, tell me about this world. Otherwise, understand. Feeling the hand on his neck like a hydraulic clamp. This man was honest. He nodded frantically, fearing that Charlotte would accidentally crush his neck. More than an hour later, Charlotte learned about the situation in this world from Leon. Oh, Leon is the tough guy who wanted to kill the Kryptonian with a gun. According to Leon's story, Charlotte can basically be sure that this is the world of the Black Robe Patrol. In this world, there are people from the motherland, superheroes, and bot company. After understanding this, Charlotte was relieved. With his strength, he can completely sweep across this world and easily harvest a large number of fear points. However, the specific harvesting method still needs to be carefully studied. Directly destroying the world is a bit too rough. And it's not long-lasting. At the same time, it can easily lead to mass extinction of the population. In this world, there is no Phoenix girl who can create a black hole with Charlotte. If all the people in this world are really killed, then Charlotte's fear value will be completely cut off. This is unacceptable to Charlotte. He has to think of a way to harvest the fear value of this world in a long-term and sustainable way. While Charlotte was thinking, Leon on the other side quietly took out his mobile phone and called Water Company. As for why he didn't call the police directly. Sorry, in this world, Water Company is an organization that maintains social order. And the police only deal with ordinary people. Wanting to deal with superpowers is too much. Only letting Water Company take action is professional. However, Leon didn't know that everything he did was known to Charlotte. Secretly calling the police in front of the Kryptonians. I can only say that you are really courageous. Super listening, please. Originally, Charlotte wanted to teach Leon a profound lesson. But in the end, he gave up this plan. Because he thought of a good idea. That is to use Water Company. In this world, Water Company is undoubtedly a global giant enterprise. It controls the most powerful violence, the most powerful propaganda machine, and the largest audience. It can be said that Water Company's position in this world is even above the American government. And such a giant-level company. Without a doubt, it is Charlotte's best partner. If you can get Water Company's help, then Charlotte can spread his terrifying image to the whole world in a minute. This is much faster than Charlotte's hard work. Of course, this method requires the cooperation of Water Company. However, Charlotte believes that Water Company will never reject his proposal. They will definitely agree. Who else can reject a Kryptonian who can destroy the world in a minute? Charlotte didn't wait any longer. Soon, the shrill sirens sounded outside. At the same time, there were many vehicles. Hearing this movement, Leon was excited. He ran out quickly. While running, he shouted, "Help, help me, the monster is in the house. Hurry up and shoot, smash the monster into pieces." But the next second, his shouting disappeared. Because two red lasers directly pierced his chest. He looked down at the big hole in his chest. Leon finally fell down unwillingly. He deserved to die. He shot at a Kryptonian. If he didn't die, it would be unforgivable. And the people of the bot company who were in the lead. After seeing the two red lasers, they had a direct stress reaction and their legs went weak. Because this attack method was too impressive for him. Could it be that someone from the motherland was in there? Of course, not someone from the motherland. But someone who came from another world, an ancestor. With a loud bang, Leon's house, which had a mortgage for decades, exploded directly. Charlotte also flew out and landed in front of these people from the bot group. After a careful inspection, Charlotte finally set his sights on a woman. Hunie Lena, a nice name. Director of the Kansas branch of Water Company, a good position. Then, may I have the honor to discuss a cooperation with you? Charlotte said calmly. But his calmness made Hunie dare not breathe. Because it was really, too similar. Whether it was the heat ray-like means, the ability to take off directly, or the arrogant attitude. They were all highly similar to someone she knew. And that person, in her memory, was an absolute devil. Thanks for watching.